You meet someone for the first time, a new coworker, a blind date, someone in line at a coffee shop. Within a fraction of a second, before they've said a single word, you've already decided something about them. Friendly or cold, safe or dangerous, trustworthy or not. You didn't choose to make this judgment. It just happened. And the strange part is, you were almost certainly wrong. Your brain is doing something ancient right now. Something that has nothing to do with logic. Something that bypasses your conscious mind entirely. You think you're reading a person, but you're not. You're reading a shape, a pattern, a set of proportions that your brain has been trained to respond to for hundreds of thousands of years. The real answer to why you trust certain faces isn't about character at all. It's about geometry. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a face the same way again. Let's start with the speed of this judgment. Psychologist Alexander Todorov at Princeton ran a series of experiments where people were shown unfamiliar faces for just 1/10 of a second. 1/10 of a second is barely enough time to register that you're looking at a face at all. Yet in that sliver of time, participants confidently rated each face on trustworthiness, competence, and likability. And here's the unsettling part. When researchers gave participants more time, even several full seconds to study the same faces, their ratings barely changed. The snap judgment and the considered judgment were almost identical. So what does that tell you? It tells you the decision was never really a decision. It was a reflex. Your brain had already made up its mind before your conscious thoughts even arrived at the scene. Why would evolution build a system like this? Think about your ancestors for a moment. Picture a small group of early humans moving through unfamiliar territory. A stranger appears on the ridge ahead. There is no time for a conversation, no time to gather references or check a reputation. There is only time for one question. Is this person a threat? For nearly all of human history, getting that question wrong could mean death. So your brain evolved a fast filter, a system that scans a face and spits out an answer almost instantly. Not a perfect answer, just a fast one. Speed mattered more than accuracy. And that trade-off is still wired into you today, even though the stakes have completely changed. Here's where it gets stranger. The features your brain actually uses to judge trustworthiness have very little to do with a person's actual behavior. Researcher Leslie Zebrowitz spent decades studying what's known as babyfaceness. Rounder eyes, higher eyebrows, a smaller chin, softer features overall. People with these traits are consistently rated as warmer, more honest, and less threatening, regardless of who they actually are. Why would that be? Because for your ancestors, these features were once reliable signals. A round-faced, wide-eyed appearance resembled an infant. And infants are not threats. Your brain borrowed that ancient association and applied it to adult strangers. The result is a kind of evolutionary shortcut. A face that resembles a baby gets treated like one. Harmless, approachable, safe. But a face with sharper angles, a heavier brow, a more angular jaw? Your brain reads those features as signs of dominance. And dominance, to your ancestors, often meant danger. Someone who might compete for resources, someone who might not back down in a conflict. None of this has anything to do with whether the person is actually kind or cruel. It's pure pattern recognition, running on instincts built for a world that no longer exists. Does this actually affect real outcomes? Unfortunately, yes. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Researcher Nalini Ambady at Tufts University studied something called thin slicing. The idea that people form accurate impressions from incredibly brief exposure to someone's behavior. In one striking line of research, participants watched silent video clips of professors teaching, each clip lasting only a few seconds. Based on nothing but body language and facial expression, with no sound at all, participants' ratings of the professors closely matched the official evaluations those same professors received from students after an entire semester. A few seconds of silent video, an entire semester of classroom experience. Nearly the same result. Now combine that with what you already know about facial trustworthiness judgments. Your brain isn't just forming a vague first impression, it's forming a snapshot that can shape how people treat you for weeks, months, even years. Job interviews, courtroom verdicts, election outcomes. Studies have found that candidates rated as more competent looking, based purely on a photograph and nothing else, win a measurable share of real political elections. Not because voters are shallow, because this judgment happens below the level of conscious thought for everyone, all the time. So here's the uncomfortable question. If your brain is making these judgments instantly and barely changing them no matter how much more information you get, how much of your daily life is being shaped by a filter you didn't choose and can't turn off? Think about how this plays out in your world today. You open a dating app. You see a photo before you read a single word of someone's profile. Your brain has already started forming an opinion. You scroll through a professional networking site. A headshot loads before the job title does. The geometry of a stranger's face is making predictions about their character before you've exchanged a single message. None of this means the judgments are meaningless. Sometimes a fast read really does pick up on something real. A flash of genuine warmth, a flicker of tension. But far more often, what you're responding to is structure, not substance. The width of someone's eyes, the curve of their cheekbones, the angle of their brow. Ancient shapes, triggering an ancient alarm system applied to a world of video calls and profile pictures that your ancestors could never have imagined. There's something almost humbling in this. The part of you that feels most personal, most intuitive, the gut feeling you get about a stranger, the sense that you can just tell isn't actually about that person at all. It's about you. About the deep architecture of a brain shaped by 100,000 years of life on a savanna, still running its old code on faces it sees through a phone screen. And maybe that's the real shift. Not learning to distrust every gut feeling you have about people, but recognizing where that feeling comes from. The next time you meet someone new, and an instant verdict arrives in your mind before they've said a word, you can pause, you can notice it. You can ask yourself whether you're responding to who this person actually is, or to a shape your brain has been primed to react to since long before you were born. Because the truth is, you were never just meeting a stranger. You were meeting a stranger through the eyes of every ancestor who came before you, each one passing down a single, simple, ancient instruction. Decide fast. Decide now. You may never get a second look.